Welcome to the Faith XP podcast, where we dig deep into the Bible one book at a time, breaking down its verses in a way that everyone can understand. Our goal is to make the Bible approachable for everyone, whether you're new to the faith or a seasoned believer. Join us as we explore the wisdom of the Word and level up our faith together. Well, it's been a while, guys.
Does anybody have anything exciting over the last couple of weeks?
I've been getting really sweaty at Halo lately, so that's been fun.
Oh, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I had a small thing. Well, we had Christmas and then had another baby, so
Oh yeah, dude!
That,
Congratulations.
it's just that minor thing.
Congrats.
I love this is how guys go over major life news. Oh, I had another baby. Oh, that's sweet.
Oh,
Congratulations, man. Yeah. So anyway,
Totally forgot.
it's just like moving on. Like, oh, that's sweet.
That was so 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Living in the
It was
past.
like, oh gosh, here come the jokes.
Welcome back, everybody. We hope you had a great Christmas and a happy New Year. We are finally back from our break, and it is good to be back. I'm here with Caleb and Gabe, back in studio.
Yeah, we're back at it. We'll cover where we left off. The last place we left off was the Lot being rescued, being saved by Abraham. So it's kind of left this at a place where these things like Sodom and Gomorrah happening, Lot being up in the hill country with his daughters and all that kind of stuff. All those things happened, and with the main part of the story, the main focus that we're at right now is Abraham is still waiting for the promise for his son to be born. Yeah, so where we're at after Sodom and Gomorrah, we are just basically where Abraham is waiting for the promise to be fulfilled, for him to start having his descendants, and we were left with that kind of a rough situation with Hagar and Sarah, which is about to get even more rough. For Hagar specifically. But yeah, that's where we are. I mean, we've been moving along slowly through Abraham's story, and now we're at the point where it's just about time for the promise to be fulfilled. At least the first stage, just the son that would lead to the descendants as numerous as the stars. So that's where we are. This is some point of time after Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot being rescued and everything like that. And it's getting into, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Abraham's around 100 at this time, and Sarah is around 90. So, yeah, that's a while. That's a while to wait for a kid. Could you imagine? They had to have been in pretty good health. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that Abraham was rolling in with like ragtag team of soldiers fighting armies. That guy is in pretty good shape, I suppose. People keep trying to steal Sarah as their wife, so I'm guessing these people don't. I'm guessing they're in pretty good shape for their age.
Yeah,
And
he must have been smoking.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't imagine waiting that long for news. Like, you can kind of understand their impatience. And as far as like in general, having children, not necessarily the promise, but as far as like they're in their 90s and 100, and like they still haven't had a kid. So, and like the thing in that culture was you had children, so it wasn't like they weren't trying. This was an effort they were putting in for a long time.
All right, Gabe, take us away.
Knock it out.
Chapter 20. Abraham and Abimelek. From there, Abraham journeyed towards the territory of Negeb and lived between Kadesh and Shur, and he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." And Abimelek, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelek in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Now Abimelek had not approached her. So he said, "Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, 'She is my sister'? And she herself said, 'He is my brother'? In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands I have done this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart, and it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours." So Abimelek rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelek called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you?" So Abimelek rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelek called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done. And Abimelek said to Abraham, What did you see that you did this thing? Abraham said, I did it because I thought, there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, This is the kindness you must do to me. At every place to which we come, say of me, He is my brother. Then Abimelek took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham and returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelek said, Behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you. To Sarah he said, Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign. Chapter 21. The birth of Isaac. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. God protects Hagar and Ishmael. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, Be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot, for she said, Let me not look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water, and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. A treaty with Abimelek. At that time, Abimelek and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants or with my posterity, but as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. When Abraham reproved Abimelek about a well of water that Abimelek's servant had seized, Abimelek said, I do not know who has done this thing. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelek, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock apart, and Abimelek said to Abraham, What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He said, These 7 ewe lambs you will take from my hand, that this may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelek and Phicol, the commander of his army, rose up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines.
Welcome back. Thank you, Gabe, for that lovely Bible reading. All right, let's jump into it.
I don't know why, but every now and then, I'd say about 25% of the time, I get Hagar and Sarah mixed up. And then I get confused. And I'm like, what?
That makes Sarah angry.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
she would cast you out.
All right, so we're gonna start with a prayer as always before we get into it, and it's gonna be my old faithful Psalm 19:14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
We are on Genesis chapter 20.
Abraham pulling
So
the classic Abraham move.
here we are again. Funny enough, there's something different happens here. So yeah, you guys have just either you just read it or listened to it, so you know what's going on. Abraham did the same thing that he did with Pharaoh, but this time he's doing it with Abimelek. And one of the things we learned about last time is this is not seen as a positive thing. This is kind of a dingus move again by Abraham. It's either a lapse in his judgment or his faith or whatever it is. The problem that happens is he's speaking in half truths, which is still a lie. It's still a sin. So like he kind of tries to code it up by saying, the Abimelech's like, what are you doing? Like, what have you done to me? I didn't know. I thought you said she was your sister. And he's like, well, I mean, she is kind of. She's like my half sister. She's like my dad's. And he's like, yeah, but you know what I mean. So Abraham is talking in half truths, and Jesus later comments not on this specifically, but on that concept of not being straightforward and kind of getting around lying, where he says, "Let your yeses be yeses and your nos be nos." And anything more than this is from the evil one. And so one of the reasons we say it's from the evil one is the first, half truth was the devil in the Garden of Eden being like, will you really die? Did God really say that? And he kind of affirms, he's like, yeah, like certainly you will be like God. You'll know good and evil. So he was given half truths. He wasn't like, he wasn't outright lying because that's obvious. And so Jesus rebukes this behavior later. So we know it's wrong. We know what Abraham's doing here is deception and a lack of faith.
I think he's being very human.
Absolutely.
And it worked out for him in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it works out fine again, honestly, but
He-
but that's not the point.
As if he is protected by somebody. Abraham is very lucky. Not lucky. He's protected. Everything usually works out in his favor and almost every turn, no matter what he does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're 100% right. One of the people in church history have talked about this is they said that what this shows is human frailty, like just humans are humans, and that God's the one who steps up to the plate here and does the right thing. But also one of the other things that this shows with Abimelech is and this is actually a little more so than Pharaoh. Um Abimelech speaks to God in his dream. This is a pagan leader. God actually comes and speaks to him in his dream and reveals that I actually know that you would have done the right thing. I know that you were not, doing this thing to be wicked or evil. You genuinely thought it was okay and you were deceived. And so God says, like, I made sure you didn't get the opportunity to sin. Like, I made sure you didn't get in the position where you could have been condemned because I still would have held you accountable. But he's like, but I stopped you. As Abimelech's like, you look at the what does he say? The righteousness of my hands and like look at the truth of my heart. Or he's basically like, that I'm innocent in this. God's like, yep. Like, and I kept you innocent. I made sure that this didn't go poorly for you. So there's kind of this ironic thing here, which again I pointed out a lot of times in the Old Testament, is one, God shows and works and has providence among other nations besides Israel, even though he's revealing himself, his nature, and who he is and his plan through the Hebrew people. God constantly, even multiple times in this story, God is constantly going outside of those people to protect and to guide other nations to where he wants them to be. And in this situation, we actually have an image of Abraham doing half truths, deceptions, and we have Abimelech being like, standing before God, being like, hey, I would have done the right thing. God's like, yeah, I know. I made sure you had the situation where you weren't condemned. And so it's like you have a pagan, unrighteous person speaking with God doing the righteous thing. And then you've got Abraham, the father, the patriarch, the father of the faith, is again making another mistake. And what this shows us is two things: like even the best Bible heroes of faith were humans and messed up all the time, and God was not okay with that, but he worked with them anyway. And also, just because somebody else is a pagan doesn't mean God is done with them or just cast them aside because they're not the right ethnicity. That doesn't work either. So it's two things are being achieved in this little short deception, the short trick. God's actually showing a lot about himself and a lot about his people. And the Hebrew word lies, Abraham lying, kazav, means it can mean illusion or self-deception as well. So Abraham might have even been tricking himself into thinking this was justified, however we work it out in our minds.
So would you say that there was a momentary snuffing of Abimelech's free will by God?
Would I say that there was I would say no. I would say that I believe in providence. I believe there's moments where God steps in and changes the courses of events to guide them in the right direction. But what he counts on is people's free will actions responding in those moments, because it's who they are, it's how they would respond. And so God has the right to step in and change history, change the course, and make sure it goes in the right direction that's the best for all humanity. So that doesn't affect people's free will. He's using people's free will to achieve a plan. And so, like, when it comes to things like salvation, he can guide events, but that doesn't mean he's determining exactly. I'm gonna determine exactly the events that happen and all of your actions and your choices to make sure you go to heaven, or to hell. That would be like a real violation of free will. But
Right.
like blocking off an exit ramp of an interstate because the person would have taken it just so you make sure they go into another one is not changing their free will. It's guiding them in a certain direction. And so, yeah, there's definitely providence. He definitely steps in and changes things, but he also has the right to do that. And so, yeah, I think sometimes one of the things that people always do is they always make free will and providence and everything always about salvation, where somebody's going when they die. And I don't think that's the point. I think God steps in all the time in the Bible to change history, to change the plan, not change the plan, you know what I mean? To guide the plan.
Drive. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so you're going to see him putting situations in front of people that he knows their heart and he knows what they want to do. Like, so he knows they would want to go to this place. So he gives them the option. But then he genuinely, like later on, he says, well, if you went there, you would have died. And that's what you could have done that. And he says, don't go there. But it's revealed that that was a true possibility. That was something that could have happened. So anyway, we're definitely going to dabble into free will and everything later, much more.
Right.
It's going to come up with Pharaoh and Moses and everything, I promise. Hardening hearts and stuff. That'll be another long topic. Abimelech said was with integrity of heart and innocence of hands, meaning my heart was clean of any like wrongdoing or desire, and my hands didn't do anything. So like I was innocent in both ways. And God's like, yeah, no, you were tricked. It wasn't fair. I made sure you got a fair shot. So thought that was cool.
And then
That's what I got from that section.
And then he still said that you got to make it right, or I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. He's like, fix it. So it's like the thing is it's funny because these people, Abraham's people, this chosen line that God's using, it's funny because they're like they have high points. They have really, really dope high points. And you just love it. And then they've got low points where the story of Hosea and Gomer are it's the perfect parallel of God with his people, with Israel. And that's one of the air quotes minor prophets. And it's basically later on God actually uses a prophet. Prophets, man, they had rough lives. They had some rough times living as a prophet. Hosea, he has an interesting life where his actual ministry, his life is used as a prophet, not a prophecy, but a prophecy. Speaking of God, the mind of God is made known through Hosea in his life of his family. So he takes this woman. He's told to take this woman as his wife. He sees her, meets her, and he actually falls in love with her, and he marries her. But the catch is she's a lady of the night. And they start having kids, and she is like a neglectful mother, and then she leaves and she goes out and goes back to her old ways and abandons him with the children. And he's here like, what am I supposed to do? And God's like, take her back. And he loves her, and he actually does go out and he seeks her, and he finds that she had gotten into such bad situation, such a bad a lot after this, that she ends up being owned by somebody. Like she's like under somebody's ownership at this point. And he goes to her in this state, and he pays all this money and buys her back, gets her from this guy, and brings her back home and restores her position as a mother and as a wife. So he went there, she does all this, cheats on him, ends up back in that old life, abandons him with the kids, and then he goes out, puts in all this work, pays her ransom, takes her back, and then sets her back up as if nothing happened. And God's like, in this situation, I'm Hosea, and my people, humans, but specifically Israel, they're the wife. That is how my relationship is with my people, not just Israel, but the whole world. That's how I'm treated by them, and this is how much I love them. And him paying the ransom for this woman is like Jesus paying the ransom for us, even though people have done far worse than what she did. So anyway, I think it's cool. So anyway, that reminds me of this. Whenever I see these people doing all these things and God just continuously does not give up on them, and Abraham lying, all this deception and things like this, and we're going to get into Kings and Judges, so you're going to see some really dark stuff. God continuously pulls them out of it. Not because he needs them, because he loves them. Which is why I always say the God of the Old Testament is just like Jesus. He's not a different God. He's not different. He's not some angry, vengeful God. He's just like Jesus, because Jesus is God. I'm going to piggyback off of what Gabe just said. So Abimelek rose early in the morning after he has this dream. Well, let's go back to the dream real quick. I'll read it again to recap. Lord, will you kill an innocent man? Did he not himself say to me, she is my sister? And she herself said, he's my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this. Then God said in a dream to him, yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart. And it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now then, return this man's wife, for he is a prophet. So that he will pray for you and that you shall live. But if you do not return her, so now he's like, look, you still have free will. You can choose to continue and act in the way you've said I'm paraphrasing here. This is not in the Bible, but this is what he's saying. Now he has a choice to make. But if you do not return her, you will surely die and all of yours. So he's like, okay, now that I've shown you what's going on, you make the choice. And so Abimelek rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all of these things. And all the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelek called Abraham and said to him, why have you done this to us? And how have I sinned against you that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? So Abimelek is correct here. And Abimelek said to Abraham, what did you see? That you did this? Abraham said, I did it because I thought, there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Spoiler, Abraham was wrong. Anyway, we continue. He explains himself. They go back and forth. And so then Abimelek took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them all to Abraham and Sarah to his wife, and returned Sarah his wife to him. Abimelek said, behold, my land is before you. Dwell wherever you please. To Sarah he said, behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you. And before everyone you are vindicated. So he's basically, one of the things he's doing here is he's showing to take a woman from her husband or to it looks scandalous, it looks bad, and it belittles and dishonors the woman for people to do this to them. And so he's actually making amends with Sarah here to show, like, he's showing all the people with Sarah, look, she has integrity, she did the right thing, I made a mistake, it's not her. So he's vindicating her to all the people, like, look, Sarah's done nothing. And so Abimelek, and then it says, Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelek, and also healed his wife and his female slaves so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelek because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So, yeah, it's one heck of an apology. And Abraham made out like a bandit.
I like to think that this passage that says, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver." I think that's when air quote fingers were invented, and he said, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000."
Yeah.
This is,
I never have I read that and thought like literally this is the first time I read through it and thought what you just said. I was like, oh, that sounds like he's like, yeah, here I give it to your brother. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought.
yeah, yeah, but it's really for her.
That makes
Which
sense.
brings us to 21. You know what's funny? I'm so certain about this. I'm not the only one. I was listening to a dramatized version with voice actors and of the Bible today, and the voice actor for Jesus in the New Testament of this is Jim Caviezel, is the man, from Passion of the Christ who was the actor who played him. He's the voice for him in this audio Bible. Well, when when the Lord comes to Hagar in this moment that we read about by the well, when that happens, the voice actor in this audio Bible is Jim Caviezel. Same thing earlier when the angel of the Lord is speaking to Abraham, they
Mhm.
just used Jim Caviezel. They used the Jesus voice actor
Nice.
every time that we've called it out so far. So I'm
They-
not alone.
right, right, right. But yeah, I don't think it was your typical angel of the Lord um, that rescued her in the desert. I think that was actually God, because I mean, he used the pronoun "I," for "I will
Yeah,
make a great nation,"
hun-
and well,
100%.
authority. I don't believe.
Yeah, and I think that's why they created a decision to depict him as Jesus all the time is 100% accurate because he does. He speaks the first person, and like if we just go ahead. So one of the things is, well, I guess we'll creep our way there in just a second. We'll cover that, but when we'll go back to it when Isaac was 8 days old, he was circumcised. I believe yes, so he was circumcised on the 8th day. They're following the standard procedure. So Sarah laughed again, but this time the word that they use for laughter and the insinuation that's going on here is that it's genuine joy. It's joyful laughter. It's not a mockery or anything like that. So the last time she heard about the baby, it was kind of a ha, like yeah, right laugh. And now she's laughing in joy as a 90-year-old woman, holding her baby, which is awesome. So God turned mourning and mockery and doubt into joy. But it's the same exact thing reiterated again, but now she sees it, and she said, but who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I bore him a son in his age.
That would have been a miracle for everyone that ever seen a 90-year-old woman with a child.
Yeah, 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 and it's mirrored later with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is an old lady and gives birth to John the Baptist. And so one of the things that I love, and I just, I like kids, I like families. I think it's awesome. I think it's natural. One of the things that's really cool about this culture and this ancient tradition that we see here, I think is really cool. The child grew and was weaned. Um, so the children were weaned at 3 years old. But what's really awesome is the day he's weaned, Abraham throws a feast for it. There's a big celebration on the day a mother weans her child. I don't know. I just think that's awesome. It's cool. It's a cool celebration. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, throwing some shade at her, whom she had born to Abraham, laughing. So she said to Abraham, oh, so one of the things here is this word. I'm not going to try to pronounce it and and be embarrassed, but it's a long word. But the laughter um usually means mockery. So when it says she saw the Hagar, she saw the Egyptian son, she saw Ishmael, and she saw him laughing. So mocking is presumably what's going on. So she said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac." So now she's getting kind of venomous about it. And then the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on the account of his son. So Abraham did not want to do this again. He's like, here we go again. I don't want to do this. But God said to Abraham, be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to do, do as she tells you. For through Isaac shall your offspring be named, and I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So again, he's getting blessed by proxy. Like, he wasn't the intended one. They got him through sin. They did all this bad stuff. They, manipulated, abused Hagar, and this poor, unfortunate child in Hagar's situation. God's like, they're getting a mighty blessed nation, and they are going to be one heck of a nation for a very long time. That's not in the Bible. That's a commentary of mine. So Abraham rose early in the morning, took bread and a skin of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, along with the child. And she sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba.
I mean, at least he gave her a little bit of water and bread, but he also knew that God's will was going to be done. So it doesn't matter what he gave her, the
That's true.
outcome, what it was going to be.
Either way, no matter what, this situation sucks. It's really sad, and um, I don't think Sarah is doing it for the right reasons. Again, I think this is a situation where she may have a somewhat valid point. Yes, Isaac is going to be the one. Ishmael cannot be growing his nation and his kingdom right on top of Isaac. And she seemed to perceive, or at least it's insinuated, that he was mocking Isaac or mocking in some sort of way. And she was angry. But God's like, I don't think what he's saying is like Sarah's intentions are all in the clear. Like, she's doing the noble, righteous thing. I think what he's saying is the action that's going to come from this is going to be good for Isaac and his mother. Not Isaac, I'm sorry, Ishmael. Ishmael and his mother.
Yeah.
So God's like, I got them. They're going to be an entire nation as well because he's your son. And they will survive. Side note, Hagar is Egyptian. Yes. These people, his people who come from him, the nations that come from Ishmael, are almost definitely the Arab nations.
That's what I'd say too.
Yep. So you have now growing up adjacently, you've got these people coming from Isaac to the north, and then you've got the other people out in the Arab deserts coming from Ishmael. Now we get to the sad-ish part. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under the bushes, and then she went and sat opposite of him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot. For she said, "Let me not look upon the death of my child." And as she sat opposite to him, she lifted her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy. The angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy, from boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation." And then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin of water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up, and he lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him in the land of Egypt. Later on, the Abraham's people end up in the mercy of their descendants. They end up in the mercy of the Egyptians. The script kind of gets flipped later on. Basically, Abimelek and his commander come out to Abraham. And they said to him, they're like, "Hey, God is with you in all that you do. Now, therefore, swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants or with my prosperity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me in the land where you have sojourned." And Abraham said, "I swear." When Abraham reproved Abimelek about a well of water so basically they went back and forth, and they worked this, they hashed it out to have peace for a time. or it was supposed to be forever, but this is Philistine country. And if anyone's ever read the story of David and Goliath, Goliath's people were the Philistines. So it's ours. It's ours later on. But we'll get back to that. The two made a covenant. They do an old ritual. He uses seven sheep as a symbolic offering of, or seven ewe lambs as a symbolic offering of completeness. And they make this covenant. And it says that Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines. One thing I do want to dial back to here. Here we see the angel of the Lord speaking with a woman who's not of the not of the promise, not of his chosen people, at a well, promising that he will be with them directly. Later on, Jesus is directly with a Samaritan woman, an outcast from her people, from her society. She's alone, not with the women of the tribe. She is ostracized because she's been married so many times and divorced. And here she is. You have this parallel imagery of Jesus with the Samaritan woman who comes to the outcast by the well in the middle of the day and assures her that I'll be with you. And we go back to this in the past. Here again, it's Jesus with an outcast woman by a well, assuring her that I will be with you and guide you. So, my thing that I push all the time, not only is that Jesus shows up countless times all throughout the Old Testament, constant cameos, but also that God is always looking out for people who are not just his people. God seeks all humans. And the initial promise to Abraham was not just that you would have a superpower race and you guys would be the best and God would always love you more than everyone else. It was that through you, all nations and all people of the world will be blessed. So God's using them as the vessel to deliver his character and his promises and his blessings to the world. And he is so merciful and his character shines so much that even before he gets to that stage, before he gets to the gospel, he's constantly stepping outside of those bounds and touching ground with people like prostitutes and pagans and occultists and magi from the east and all of these people, just showing that he desires all people.
He casts his fishing net deep and far. He tries to go and catch everybody.
Exactly. Well, the reasons I keep trying to hammer this point home, one of the reasons I keep trying to hammer this point home is because I constantly hear two things. They say the God of the New Testament, the God of the Old Testament are so different. And I hate that. We've talked about this on past episodes. I hate that claim. It's not true. And the other thing that I don't like is when people make this claim that like the God of the Bible, especially the God of the Old Testament, was all about his ethnic group. He was obviously this, Bronze Age ethnic God who was all about his people, just like every other God. And like, if you just go and read the Bible, that is not true. It's like patently not true. You can see constantly, and he rebukes his own people and punishes them, if not more, as much as everybody else around them. I think that if you just read through the Bible, and I know the Old Testament's very long, but if you get through it and you get to Jesus, you get to the gospel, you're going to recognize him. Jesus says later, we're skipping forward again, but he says, Philip, Philip says to Jesus, let us see the Father. That's what we want. And Jesus says, Philip, have I been with you all this time and you still do not know me, Philip? Surely I tell you that if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. So boom, right? He's just from beginning of the page, from Genesis walking in the Garden of Eden with his people to him walking to his crucifixion in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's the same person. The Bible verses says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. I will beat that drum until we get through this Bible. Shocker, it's not an act. It's not like all these thousands of years of books and documentations and scrolls just happen to line up to the most perfectly cohesive story arc and account of world history ever. It seems like it had an actual author outside of time guiding it. Unpopular opinion.
Definitely see it in every chapter. He shows up.
That's like Jesus says, if you have ears to hear and eyes to see, it's like once you see it, it's hard to not see it anymore. And one of the things that reminds me of is Jesus after his crucifixion, when he's on the road, there's two disciples. And at this point, everyone is really sad. He's already been resurrected, but not everyone knows about it. There's two disciples walking on the road to Emmaus. And Jesus walks up next to them and he starts speaking to these guys. And he's like, "What's going on? Are you the only person in all of Jerusalem or Judea who hasn't heard what's been going on?" He's like, "Oh, what?" He's like, "Well," and they say, explain Jesus dying and the crucifixion. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And it has this long, long talk with them on the road to Emmaus. And then he gets to the house with them. And when he sits down and they take communion, they break the bread and they pour the wine. And then they realize it's Jesus who's with them all along. But on the road, he explained everything from in the Bible. Like this was like the ultimate Bible study. These two guys have a Bible study explaining God's working and Jesus's guidance from the beginning of the Bible until the until the crucifixion and the resurrection. The one leading that Bible study on this road to Emmaus all the way up to this house was Jesus. So these people got to have a Bible study with Jesus where he gives them all the Easter eggs and tells them everything. And you know who these people know? These people are disciples. These are people who sit down with the apostles, later leading to the New Testament being written, the Gospels. So not only did God guide these authors of the New Testament in a spiritual way, the Holy Spirit leading them and inspiring them what to write, but they also had a pretty good source for the truth of the Bible in the Old Testament. They had actually God walking with them, explaining, "Hey, this is how it was all meant to work. This was the plan. This is how this connects to this." And it's like, people are like, if I could be on a fly on the wall when Michael throws Lucifer down into the lake of fire, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that would be sweet. But I'd like to be a fly on the wall on the Bible study led by Jesus. That would be pretty sweet too.
Taking a prophecy lesson from the proof of the prophecy.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, "Remember when I dropped those hints and everyone missed it?"
That would blow your mind. Maybe not at the time. They had no idea. I mean, it wasn't as
Yeah,
mind because they didn't have the same perspective that we did.
right. What's crazy is because he's informing them of all of this stuff, and then they get there, and then they realize, "Oh, this is Jesus," and then he leaves.
Yeah.
So like, what happened? So I think that's cool. Anyway, the next stage is the sacrifice of Isaac, and I think that might need its own episode. I'm gonna double down pretty hard on that one. There's some pretty good stuff in that story. Before I'll let you guys. Do you guys have any thoughts or anything?
I did like how Abimelek saw Abraham coming at the last interaction, and he's like, "Look, before we do it, we're gonna get some ground rules here."
Yeah, let's do some ground rules, and I want you to swear by your God that you'll never deceive me.
It's like, dang it, you got me.
He's like, "All right,
You silly goose. Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, also another trivia fact: Abimelek. I'm pretty sure you guys know, but it's not a name. It's a mashup of two words, Abba and Melech, meaning father, king, idol. So
Yes. That's why way later you're gonna hear the name Abimelek again, and you're gonna be like, "Wait, he's still kicking?"
and that's like
The answer's
300.
no. Huh?
And that's like 300 years later.
Yeah. So you're like, "Wait, something don't wash here." Abimelek can't still be alive, man. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, it's true. That's why Abimelek is later as well, and it's a title. Same way it doesn't name pharaohs. Oftentimes it'll just say Pharaoh, which causes a lot of headaches for historians looking through the Bible and be like, which Pharaoh? But
A lot of times their name won't be in there. It'll just say Caesar.
yes. Yeah, so it's a common like motif in all these old writings.
That's where the historians come in and help.
Egypt is even harder than Rome though.
Yeah, the guy talks about how each pharaoh wanted to outdo the previous pharaoh with gold and money, and then they started just like scraping off the names on the previous
People's
pharaoh's
names.
things and putting the new pharaoh's name on it.
Yeah, I love that.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's so trifling, man. Yeah. Ramesses was a menace. One thing I do want to give, so for the next episode when we get into, I'll give a teaser for the next episode. The location in which Isaac is to be sacrificed is extremely significant. And it's not an accident that Abraham takes Isaac to that location. It's an accident on Abraham's part, but God plans it perfectly. Something cool for that.
Tune in next
Yes,
week
sir.
to hear why Abraham has to sacrifice his son Isaac.
One thing I will say, again, I always give this disclaimer, is that we are not priests, pastors, or teachers. So if something you hear here, or you're trying to form some kind of new theology based on the obscure stuff we're saying, don't do that. First off. Secondly, go to somebody you trust for guidance on anything spiritual, and don't just take everything people say on the internet as a gospel. Unless we're given the gospel, you can take that as gospel, because we know what that is.
We do want to take a quick second to congratulate Leo and his wife on welcoming their new baby boy. Yeah, round of applause. Congratulations. Everyone, don't forget to check out Vitals and Virtues podcast on any sort of podcast platform.
That is awesome. Good job, guys.
I know he's got a few guests lined up for his next few episodes.
I'm going to steal a joke from my wife here. The Bible says to go and make disciples, but it doesn't say how.